Madam Chairperson, and members of the committee. My name is Robert Zuritsky, and I represent the Philadelphia Parking Association. I very much appreciate this opportunity to ask for the support in mitigating an excessively burdensome section of the city's tax code, the 20% tax on parking. I want to begin by acknowledging a reality that all of us in the parking business understand. People don't necessarily like paying for parking. Many people will drive around the block 5 times searching for a meter before they give up and drive into a lot or garage. But the fact is, parking lots and garages are an essential component of any city. A percentage of people going to work, restaurants, theaters, seeing a doctor, or conducting business need places to park. They have the right to expect professionally operated, clean, and safe parking facilities with courteous staffs. And that's exactly what they find at most of Philadelphia's licensed lots and garages. What the citizens of Philadelphia may not know is that licensed parking operators here pay a 20% tax on parking revenue. That's a shockingly high tax by any standard. Even in New York, where parking is certainly at a much higher premium, parking operators pay a tax almost 2 percentage points lower than we do. Now, the first chart here will show anyone who has run a business or a household budget can see what we are up against. 55% of our operating expenses go to taxes or fees. The parking tax, property tax, use and occupancy tax, wage tax are just some of the 11 taxes and fees we pay. That means that we've already paid out 55% in taxes before we begin to pay our employees, maintenance and repair, our utility bills, and our insurance. Of course, the parking operators aren't really the ones paying the parking tax. It's the customers who park their cars in our facilities. The tax had been 15%, still quite sizable, until 2008, when it was boosted to the current 20%. Imagine paying 15 or 20% when you purchase anything. What the legislation that we are looking for is that we roll the tax back to what it had been, 15%, so that Philadelphia is more in line with other major cities. The most palatable part of the plan from the city standpoint is that by adopting the steps we suggest, the city will end up with even more revenue than it now receives from parking. However, it will be done in a fairer way and in a way that requires all parking operators pay the 15% tax, not just the legal and licensed operators. The Philadelphia Parking Association is made up of legitimate business people. We are licensed. We pay every dime of tax owed. We pay our employees decent salaries and benefits. We play by the rules. These are 2 reports that one of our association members put together of 100 rogue parking lots that do not play by the rules. They run their parking lots and garages without being registered with the city. That means not only do they not pay the 20% parking tax, there is no way to know whether they are paying for insurance, use and occupancy taxes, business privilege tax, or any other taxes and fees that we are assessed in the industry. We as an association have been working with the city to crack down on these entities. I want to use this occasion to publicly thank the city's revenue department for its partnership in going after some of these operators. The city has already informed us that they have recaptured $1.8 million. Millions more can be found by auditing every parking facility in the city. How many businesses come before City Council to urge you to audit their industry? To go along with this legislation before you, we are recommending that the audits be regularly conducted. The city could hire 2 additional auditors to handle only this work. The 60% of parking operators in Philadelphia who run honest business welcome and want the scrutiny. We know that if every parking facility in the city plays by the rules as we do, the city can reduce the parking tax to 15% and realize more revenue from the tax than it does now. An important point to remember is that many of these rogue parking facilities are open next door to or near our licensed facilities. When a driver pulls into a lot, he or she does not have any way of knowing if it's a legitimate business. That means the driver doesn't have the assurance his car will be insured. In addition, the city loses all of the taxes I listed before. So aside from the revenue issue, we want the citizens and the visitors of the city to have the reassurance of knowing their car is parked in a licensed facility. As I mentioned, we know that many people don't like parking companies, but that's not a reason to make us an easy target of a 20% tax. Think about it. Think about paying 20% tax on your next purchase. You would never go back to that store again. When the parking tax was increased to 20% in 2008, the national recession had just hit. That combination of recession and this onerous tax have devastated our industry. On top of the increased parking tax, we have absorbed the same 9.9% real estate tax increase that everyone else has. And the water runoff tax will be doubling for parking lot operators over the next 5 years. Who pays that tax load over the long haul? The parking public. I say that because without profits in our industry, we won't have the resources to maintain our properties or invest in new facilities. Over time, that would lead to smaller supply of parking lots and garages. And then when that supply shrinks, the prices will rise even further. A perfect example of this is a garage at 219 South Broad Street, right down the street, right across the street from the Bellevue. It's a 60-year-old parking garage that has an elevator that operates to get the cars up and down. 2 months ago, that garage stopped using 9 of its 10 floors. The owners determined that they could not afford to rehab that business, to rehab the elevators and the concrete in that garage. It's a very good location for parking. And at its peak, it parked 400 cars a day. Now it parks 45 cars. The monthly rate went from $173 to $289 per month. Jobs were lost. We want to keep parking rates as affordable as possible and people employed. We come before you today not to ask that you roll the tax back 5% in one fell swoop. We know it will take time for the auditors to do their work and bring the unlicensed operators into compliance. Instead, we are asking for an incremental reduction phased in over the 5 years. The first reduction of 1 percentage point would take effect on July 1st and would bring Philadelphia closer to New York's tax. The tax would further be reduced by 1 percentage point over the next 4 years. The legislation simultaneously calls for 5 steps that would balance the revenue scales, including enforcement of the existing laws on the 100 rogue operators. And I've been informed that we have found another 32 rogue parking facilities since the last book was published. The package would also have the effect of acting to ensure quality parking facilities. The parking industry is an important component of Philadelphia's transportation infrastructure. All the other components, roads, bridges, mass transit, are subsidized by taxpayers. In contrast, we are taxed and receive no government assistance. In addition to the 20% parking tax, we also pay a long list of taxes as described here in the exhibit. The most important math I ask you to consider today is that in the first year, at a 1% reduction, the city would receive $3.5 million less in parking tax revenue, but would more than make up for that decrease with as much as $12 million in parking taxes collected from those currently not paying. The 17 companies represented by our association are very proud. As you could see, we had at least 160 of them here, and they hung in for close to 4 hours. I really appreciate that. We employ close to 3,000 men and women. Most of them live in the city of Philadelphia. We are solid corporate citizens. We are here today to ask you to give us the ability to continue to work and thrive in this great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony.